99.9% of my email is spam. So like, it's fine. And not like spam, but like, marketing.
I open almost every email I receive. Actually, I take that back. I open every email I receive.
Because you've already determined that they're like valuable?
Yeah. If it's not valuable, I will open it and unsubscribe. If it is valuable, I open it, even the marketing stuff. If I've chosen to stay subscribed to it, it's enough for me to open it and read it. I have empty right now. My Gmail inbox has one email in it, and it is a return label for Amazon that I have to use when I go to work tomorrow. Otherwise, it is empty.
So I do like the approach, the whole zero inbox thing, because I do something similar where my inbox right now is literally empty. I am not quite so extreme about it that I take the time to unsubscribe from things that make it through Gmail spam.
So do you just like constantly delete emails?
I archive, but yeah.
Do you archive spam and things that you don't care about?
Yes. Oh. Archive is just my default. I don't think I ever actually delete anything.
I'm very particular, both at work and in Gmail, about what I archive and what I delete.
Is there a difference, or does it just make searching later easier?
Deleting totally deletes it in 30 days.
Archive, it sits in the trash forever.
Sits in the all mail category.
Is that a bad thing?
No. Not if you will eventually fill up. Like if you go to Gmail and you look in the bottom left corner, there is a limit.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
But I've had my email since like 2013 or whatever, and I'm at 5.18 out of 15.
I don't know where I am. That's a good question.
I don't actually see that limit.
It's not in the bottom left corner when you go to Gmail?
I have Hangouts.
At the very, you have to scroll to the bottom of your inbox. I'm at 2.29 out of 15.
You can go to 1.google.com/u/0/storage. I will put it in the chat.
I have 2.29 out of 15 gig, and I've had my Gmail since probably 2004 or 5.
Oh yeah, look at that. 3.97 gigs out of 15 gigs.
Yeah, there you go. I wish I could see like when I created it. I guess I could look at when my first email was.
It might be easier to search sent.
I received my first email that I have not deleted yet. June 17th, 2007.
October 21st, 2006, and it is a comment from MySpace.
Oh my god. Okay, how do you find that?
Click all mail on the left.
All mail.
And then in the top right-hand corner, there's 1 of 50 out of whatever. Hover over that and click oldest.
Oldest.
Oh, wait, no, I have one from June 2006. So that's what mine was, June 2006.
1 year earlier than me, huh? Oh my gosh. Wow. Look at these files I still have in here. My first email that I received... Oh, no. But the first email I sent was my mom's playlist exported out of iTunes. I sent her the text files for some reason. We must have been moving the playlists or importing them somewhere else, or... And then I sent the very next email is I sent my dad my high school marching band music via email.
That's so that you could print it, I bet.
No, MP3s.
Oh, MP3s.
Oh, and my next one is about APUSH summer reading, AP US history.
Wow.
My first email on my Gmail account is talking about radio merit badge information to my Boy Scout troop.
When is it?
June 20th, 2009.
Okay.
You're not impressed. Why are you not impressed?
Because it's 3 years after Chris and 2 years after me.
Be more impressed.
I'm Chris.
I'm Mario.
I'm Jason, and this is SuperQuit. Guys, this past couple of days has been Prime Day, and Chris and I were in a channel yesterday, And we started going over all the deals and whatnot. Obviously, the best deals on the site are like Amazon stuff. So like their router, then their Eero stuff, their devices and all that. But some of the other really good deals are like a lot of electronics. So Chris and I started digging into like some smart home stuff, and we just started talking. And then all of a sudden we were just like, wait, save it for the pod.
Yes, that is a prime topic. Prime day.
Boo.
A prime topic for a podcast episode.
I thought this was a good group to talk about it with because Chris has got a pretty decent setup with smart home stuff. Mario has an acceptable setup, I think. A respectable setup. And then I have nothing. And I have always been trying to get into something, trying to see what I can add to my home, trying to see what I can integrate. But I've always been like afraid to, or like didn't want to deal with all of like the confusing web of apps and integrations and all of that stuff. And I feel like the industry's not there yet. So I've just never gotten into it. And I thought that we should get together and talk about smart home stuff.
I like it. So what are we talking about when we say smart home? Like what falls into that category?
I think a better term might actually be like home automation, where like things that you install in your house that allow you to control things in your house from some digital form.
Yeah, I would put anything. I mean, we can go like the Internet of Things route, like anything. I mean, we could go as broad as like anything in your house that is web connected. And, obviously there's computers and such, but anything outside of like the standard computer we could include in this, because I've got a microwave that is Alexa enabled. Does that mean it's smart home? I kind of think so. Like I can tell my Alexa to run the microwave, and I think that's kind of cool. But that's much more like Internet of Things than maybe home automation, but it might be a good place to start.
My parents' oven runs Android. But yes, I agree with you.
So, I mean, I can say that. The things in my house that are internet connected are my thermostat. I have an Ecobee, technically Alexa enabled, but doesn't actually, I turn it off. And then my microwave. And that's it. That's all I've got. I don't have any switches. I don't have any plugs. I don't have any lights. I don't have any garage door openers. Nothing else. Those are the only two devices.
You have several Echo devices, right?
Yes. And I talk to them all the time, but no other like automation things in the house.
Got it.
And on the other hand, Chris, you have what?
I have everything that is HomeKit compatible. So I'm more of in the Apple ecosystem. And I have an Ecobee without Alexa. I have a bunch of Wemo mini smart plugs, which are connected to various outlets around my house. I have Nanoleaf triangles, Nanoleaf shapes and the triangle shapes connected with HomeKit. I have some Leviton dimmer in my kitchen. I have a Lutron Caseta ceiling fan controller in my master bedroom. And I think that's it.
And then Mario, from what I remember, you're like primarily focused on lights, right?
Yeah, pretty much all of my things are. I have 3 Google Homes dotted about my small 800 square foot apartment, which gives me perfect coverage. And then I have 4 Wemo smart plugs to control several of my lamps. But other than that, like I can't really do much because, like I said, I rent. So certain things are just not available to me, like upgrading my thermostat, not technically allowed. So otherwise, I'd be all on board that Nest train.
Mario and Chris, you both mentioned that you have plugs and outlets. Are a lot of your lights and Mario, it sounded like all of your lights were plugged into outlets. Do you guys not have overhead lights?
I'm trying to think here. I do have overhead lights. Some of the brighter, like in the kitchen and the bathroom. But then throughout like the living room, my office, my bedroom, it's all lamps. And so those are plugged into Wemos, which means I could control them from my phone. I could just tell Google to turn the lights on. which I don't know is maybe overkill, but I like not having to worry about actually clicking the switches on the lamps because I think I only have 2 outlets that are like have traditional wall switches.
I have lots of overhead lights. I mean, I have ceiling fans in every room, and all of those have lights on them. And I will use, like, my office has a ceiling fan in it with a light, and I use that light as its light. But I also have a lamp on my desk behind my monitors that's connected to a smart plug that I can turn on. We can talk about automation a little bit later, but I can turn it on by waving my phone over an RFID tag on my desk, which is kind of fun. But yeah, I have a lot of overhead lights, but typically my kitchen is our downstairs lights. We just turn on the kitchen lights, and that's good enough for our like family room. We have kind of like an open concept downstairs. And so those are on a smart switch. And upstairs, we basically just use the switches in the rooms to turn on lights, except for one lamp.
So what are all the plugs for in your house, Chris?
So I have 2 of them. I have 2 of them in my office. And one is for that light that I just mentioned. Another one is for a fan that I keep under my desk. So I'm, again, able to kind of wave my phone over a certain part of the desk, and it will enable an automation that turns on that fan. Or I can change it from my phone. And at Christmas time, I have an upstairs and downstairs Christmas tree that I have on these smart plugs. And I also have one lamp in the master bedroom that comes on at sunset and turns off at 10:30 at night. Just as like a nice, like, little automated, the bedroom's never dark.
And Chris, you have no voice assistants in the house.
Correct. I have no dedicated voice devices. We used to have an Echo, like the original Echo, but I realized I really wasn't using it that much. And then I was just kind of like, well, I don't really need this thing mishearing me more than I actually use it. So we unplugged it, and I just don't use it. It's sitting in a drawer. I also have an Echo Dot that is in the same drawer. But I occasionally attempt to use Siri on my phone, like to talk to my iPhone, but it almost never works. So I basically have given up on that, and I do everything manually through my phone.
So this light in your bedroom, I want to focus in on this light in your bedroom. It comes on at a certain time and it turns off at 10:30 p.m.
Correct.
What if you want to go to bed before 10:30 p.m.?
You can turn it off. It just basically, the automation is set to turn off that light at 10:30. If that light's already off, it just stays off.
Yeah, but if you want to turn it off, do you have to open an app on your phone?
Oh, I don't open an app. I just swipe down from the top right, and it's in my favorites on my control center of my phone.
Oh, it's in your control center. That's clever.
Yes. Oh, I forgot one. I was just looking at my phone, and I have the printer that we have downstairs because it used to be flaky. I have that on a smart plug so that I could reboot the printer from upstairs remotely.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess this kind of gets into the different, I don't know, controllers maybe is the word, that are available between Google and HomeKit and Echo and self-hosted options that we could get into. They just have different ways to expose them. Like HomeKit is cool because if you already have your iPhone and you're just carrying it around everywhere, it ties in really nicely, I think.
I think the other piece of this is not just the controllers, like your iPhone and the voice assistants, but this massive web of what works with what. I mean, the HomeKit idea is really nice because if it says it works with HomeKit, it works with your iPhone. But I mean, in my 10 minutes of research, that tends to be a little bit more expensive. So I've just always been stuck kind of in this paralysis of, oh my gosh, what do I get? What do I do? What do I buy? I don't want anything because I don't know that it's all going to work together. And the last thing I want is to have to use 15 apps on my phone to control my house.
See, that's where I found that the Google ecosystem tends to be pretty well supported, I think, which, makes sense. They're kind of the big three, is one of the big three. I've never explicitly looked for HomeKit enabled things, but I could definitely see that being the case, that they would be more expensive.
The reason that HomeKit stuff is or was more expensive is because up until I think a year or two ago, Apple actually required a hardware chip to ensure the security of HomeKit compatible devices. And then in, I don't know, 2018, 2019, whenever it was, they kind of opened that up and said, okay, you can meet this requirement in software. And that really opened up the gates to people being able to make software relatively inexpensive, HomeKit compatible things. Interestingly, HomeKit devices come with a code printed on them or printed in their manual that you can actually use as kind of a pairing code, and it does network discovery to find the device. So that kind of wiring, or not wiring, but like pre-printing of those labels and things have to be kind of arranged and somehow burned into the chip on the device, which I think makes HomeKit a little bit more expensive for the manufacturer, but also easier for the consumer to set up.
Mario, with those devices you had, those smart plugs, they aren't that you use them with Google. Did you set them up through like the Google Home app, or did you have to download like a separate app and set them up?
It's a separate app, and this is one reason I don't know. I only have Wemo products, and I think Wemo is owned by Falcon, maybe?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, so I don't know if this is a problem when you start adding more devices and more like brands. But yeah, I do on my phone have a Wemo app, and so whenever I first plug these particular smart plug kind of adapters in, I had to go through a bit of a setup first to like connect them to my Wi-Fi, and then they download the latest firmware. But then once they're enabled and once they're like installed and configured correctly in the Wemo app, then they're available within the Google Home app. So I actually have to do two steps: one to get it like registered with my Wemo app, and then another one to actually connect it to Google. I'm actually looking right now because I've never played with Apple Home, so I wonder if they would show up there as well.
Those Wemo smart plugs are compatible with HomeKit because I have the same ones, I think. Well, as long as they're like relatively recent-ish. They used to need a bridge in order to kind of be an intermediary between HomeKit and the Wemo stuff. But then the Wemo minis that have been coming out for the past, 4 or 5 years have all been HomeKit compatible out of the box. So if they have a little code on them, they probably are HomeKit compatible.
Yeah, they do. So I'm going to have to take a look in this app and see if they show up. That'd be kind of cool.
I also have the Wemo app installed on my phone, mostly as a troubleshooting mechanism, whereas if I need to reset a Wemo or if I need to upgrade its firmware, then I use that app. But I don't have it. I mean, it's like buried in the app library on my phone. Like I don't have to interact with it ever because I do everything through the Home app or through automations.
Even the initial setup, right?
The initial setup, yeah, you can just work it through the little code and it will automatically pair and then give the Wi-Fi information from your iPhone straight to the device and all of that. And it's a really kind of seamless setup process.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
And the other thing that's really good about HomeKit, I think, is that because all of these things are HomeKit compatible, they do not actually require you to set up an account with whoever the vendor is. So like I didn't have a Wemo account for like a few years of using Wemo stuff. I can't remember why I finally got one. But like you don't actually have to have an account in order to add something to your HomeKit home.
Because it's all basically managed locally directly from HomeKit.
Right. HomeKit has to have a hub in the house, and that hub can either be an Apple TV or an iPad.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah, so they have to have a device that is basically the gateway between the internet and your house as a security thing, I think. And so we use our Apple TV as our home hub, but you could use an iPad that's mostly at home as a home hub as well. Obviously, then if the iPad's not at home, it can't control your house.
Wow, I didn't realize that. One, you needed a hub. The other term that really scares me is anytime anyone says bridge, I'm just like, nope, I'm out.
Yeah, there is no bridge for the Wemo stuff. The Lutron stuff does require a bridge, which is not ideal, but I did get a kit that included a bridge, and it's been fine.
So what? It's just another box that has to sit somewhere in the house?
It's a little box that has an Ethernet cable on one end and a little micro USB like power supply that it plugs into wherever. And then I just put that on the router anywhere in the house, and then it wirelessly connects to the switch and then interprets between the switch and HomeKit, basically.
So I'm looking in Apple's instructions, and maybe we're going too far into Apple here, but it says, and I haven't read this, but when it's talking about adding accessories, it's saying set up your HomePod, HomePod Mini, Apple TV, or iPad as a home hub so that you can control your accessories while you're away from your home. So are you able to do this? Are you able to get away with just controlling it locally without a hub of some kind?
I don't know. I've never done it without having a hub.
Yeah, I wonder if that would screw up all things like timed. Chris says that light comes on, and if he's not home and he didn't have a hub, right? Does that screw everything up? I think having a hub is, it's probably best practice, but it's kind of annoying to me. I guess I kind of understand it. I also kind of don't understand it if all of these are Wi-Fi capable devices. Are they not talking to the internet directly?
Well, there's a whole nother side there, where yes, they can talk to the internet directly, but I think when they're in a HomeKit world, they kind of they do both, because I can use the Wemo app to control my Wemo switches, or I can use the Home app to control them from in my house. But one of the other pieces about HomeKit when it started was that it was actually able to work on Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. So you could actually Bluetooth to your Apple TV, your smart lock or whatever. And I think that's kind of mostly gone away. Everything is pretty much Wi-Fi at this point. But when HomeKit started, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, it was a much more kind of diverse ecosystem between Wi-Fi and Bluetooth for smart home stuff. And so that's why you need a hub, because obviously Bluetooth doesn't work, past 100 feet.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
So I would say, Jason, don't be afraid of a hub when the hub is an Apple TV or an iPad that you already have. There is a Home app on the Apple TV, but I literally have never used it. And I don't think that there is any user-facing anything about that Apple TV being a hub other than it's just added to the Home app. It's very, very, very simple to set up.
Yeah, I have an Apple TV, so if I ever did this, that's probably what I would use. I also have an iPad, but it travels, so.
And I think it's also important to point out that this need for hubs is not universal, right? I had Wemo devices before I had an Echo Dot or a Home Mini or whatever it is, and they work just fine because they're connected directly to Wi-Fi.
So Mario, did you have to do anything special to set those up with Google? Do you use any if this then that recipes, or is it kind of all managed through that Google Home app?
So by evidence of me only having 4 smart devices, really, or 4 home automation things, I really don't do anything fancy. I don't have anything on timers or anything. I basically have it so that when I say good morning to my Google device, it turns on lights and tells me the weather. I have it when I say good night, it turns everything off. I think I have one more that I can't remember. But that was all done just through either the Google Assistant or the Google Home app. They're kind of mix and matched a little bit, which is kind of confusing, typical Google. But otherwise, yeah, it was fairly straightforward to get it all configured the way I like it. And so Wemo through the app just gives you the ability to do simple scheduling, but then through Google Home, you're able to do, or rather through that app, you're able to do phrases and other timers and routines.
So you mentioned good morning. I know that you ask Google to turn on and off the lights. Is there anything else you do with any of your automation?
Not really, no. And like I said, I'm pretty straightforward in my usage of home automation things. I think if I ever owned my home and I was a little more willing to invest into its home automation and its smart devices, I would probably go a little more all out between not just a thermostat, but also, I don't know, maybe a Ring doorbell, or I think someone mentioned a garage door opener earlier. I think right now, so the smart plugs I have are actually a little Wi-Fi relay kind of thing that plugs into an existing outlet. but they make similar smart plug switches kind of thing that are either the switch on your wall or I want to say they make a smart outlet as well. So there are ways to kind of more permanently integrate these smart devices into your home that I'm just not going to take the effort to do while I'm still renting an apartment.
I will say that when I got my dimmers for my kitchen, that was like a huge upgrade. Like I put in these, they're basically dimmer switches that are Wi-Fi enabled, and I can set them to come on a schedule, or I can set them to turn off on a schedule. I have them set up with an automation to say when the first person arrives home and it's dark out, like, and it's after sunset, then turn on the kitchen lights. So the lights are always on basically before we drive up to the house. So the lights are on when you get home, but they're not necessarily on while you're not home. I have no idea if that actually works. They're just always on when I get home. So maybe they're on all day and I just can't tell. But I think that kind of thing was really big. And then also those dimmers have like options in them, which you do actually have to use the manufacturer app for, which is, maybe a bummer, maybe not. But they have options where you can set like a fade up and a fade down time. So like I have like a 2 or 3 second fade up time and then like a 10-second fade down time, which, because it's the kitchen and that, like I said, kind of lights the whole downstairs. Whenever I'm going upstairs, I can push the off button on the kitchen, and then I have time to get basically halfway up the stairs before it goes totally pitch black. So like that's something that's not really related to smart home. It's just related to having a fancy dimmer attached to your lights. But the fact that it also, at 10:30, that's the same thing. We have the kitchen set to be the same way, where at 10:30 it will turn off the kitchen lights, which sometimes if we're, like watching a movie or, something where we don't have all the lights off, but like the lights will turn off and then we have to turn them back on. But that's no big deal because, again, Control Center, just go swipe down from the top right and push a button and the lights come right back on.
Or, swipe up from the bottom depending on the age of your iPhone.
Okay, yes, fine.
iPhone 7 gang. Woo.
We have a tech podcast, Mario, and you still have an iPhone 7.
It works, okay? You have to be thrifty.
Chris, I'm interested in digging a little bit more into like your automation, because the RFID cards or the RFID like hotspots on your desk are like so interesting to me. But I have like no idea how I would utilize them. Maybe I actually, you know what? I have an overhead fan in my office that is controlled via a wall switch. If I were to put a wall switch on the wall that I could control from an RFID on my desk, oh, that would be cool. That would be cool.
Yeah, I mean, and you could also, still control it from, I would assume, from your cylinders. Like, I think you can dual home these things and control them from either, although I haven't really tried. But I think you could actually ask your Echo to mess with the fan in addition to being able to tap the RFID thing. Or do it through Control Center on your phone.
Yeah, that'd be cool. So you have RFIDs, you have the Control Center stuff, you have timed. You mentioned some location things like the getting home and all of that. Like that's quite a setup.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds impressive and sounds elaborate, but really it's set up through, there's an automations page in the Home app, and you can basically just set up whatever you want. And they have a nice little wizard that just walks you through, like, what conditions would you like it to be? Do you want it to be all the time or only certain times? Like, it's very easy to set, from sunset to sunrise. Or like, I actually have one that runs at 10 p.m. daily. And this is the most elaborate thing that I have, other than that location one. The most elaborate thing I have is it runs a shortcut at 10 o'clock, which looks at the Ecobee and queries the temperature of the master bedroom. And if it is above a certain temperature, it turns on the ceiling fan. And that all is just a little shortcut action that has, I don't know, 2 or 3 actions in it. But like using shortcuts, you can set, and that's the same way that you kind of do the RFID interactions. It's basically the same interface as shortcuts. It's just through the Home app, and you can give Home commands through shortcuts. So you can have that run at times of day. You can have that run when you open certain apps. You could have it run. I mean, there's all sorts of interesting things you can do with automation and shortcuts on your phone on iOS.
Are you ever worried that you're tying like your home control too much to Apple's, not just like their ecosystem, but like Apple's offering as an application. Like if Apple decides, hey, we're gonna sunset some application or some feature, like that could impact your home layout or your home automation setups.
That's true, but one of the nice things about working in the HomeKit ecosystem is that everything that supports HomeKit also supports Amazon and probably also supports Google. So if I really got stuck, if Apple were just to decide that they didn't want to do this anymore, I could fall back into one of those other ecosystems if I wanted to. But more likely, I would probably just say, oh, well, I guess I don't have a, super fancy timed fan with an if logic about the temperature of my bedroom anymore.
And on top of that, the more likely culprit of that is definitely Google, not Apple.
Exactly. Google kills stuff like every week.
Yeah, that's very true. There's a website for that.
There is. So I'm really not worried about Apple kind of changing their mind on that per se. And that's actually something that I really like about choosing all of my things to be HomeKit compatible, is that I kind of trust Apple to be stable in a lot of that, like at least in maintaining the low level APIs, right? They haven't so far changed the protocol to the point where stuff doesn't work. Like, version 1 HomeKit stuff doesn't work with HomeKit now. Like they haven't done that yet in several years, 5 or 6 or 7 years, however long it's been. And so I kind of trust that all of my stuff will work together that way. Whereas I definitely could see an individual vendor, right? I could see like Wemo saying, oh, well, your Wemo plug is too old. We're on the Wemo 12 now and you have a Wemo 2. And like, since they're HomeKit compatible, I'm like, yeah, I don't care. Like, I don't care if I can't do the scheduling through the Wemo app, because all of my schedule stuff runs through something that's running on my Apple TV.
Chris, Mario walked us through some of the stuff that he would maybe get if he had a house. Is there anything on your wish list from a home automation standpoint?
The two things that I don't have that I think I would like to have, but are a little bit more concerning to me from a privacy standpoint, are the things that give access to my house. So that being a smart garage door and smart locks. I would love to be able to lock my door remotely and like check if it is locked. And same thing with the garage door, check if it is down from anywhere. But also I understand that means that there is a potential security hole, right, where someone can get into my house if for some reason there's a flaw in a protocol or something happens from a cybersecurity standpoint. And I don't really want to tie cybersecurity to physical security in my house.
That's probably wise.
The other thing that I want, that I'm kind of close to getting actually, is some kind of security camera though. So as part of Apple's HomeKit ambitions, they have something called HomeKit Secure Video, where you get to skip all of the kind of subscription-y stuff and all of the like cloud scumminess of like different companies like Ring and those kinds of things. And you can go straight to HomeKit with your video feeds from cameras. So if you have, like, for instance, the Logitech has the Logitech Circle, I think it's called the Circle View or something like that. And that basically what it does is it pairs to your HomeKit house and to your Apple TV, and then they encrypt all of the video of anything interesting. They encrypt it locally on the Apple TV and then push it up to iCloud. And it doesn't count against your storage limit on iCloud. So if it's like number of cameras is tied to what tier of iCloud storage payment plan that you have. So like if you pay the $3 a month, you get like one camera. If you pay the, $5 a month, you get 2 or 5 or something. And if you pay the $10 a month, I think they just announced it's unlimited. I mean, I already have the 2 terabytes, like the $10 a month plan anyway for, just storage reasons. So that's really nice to me, is that I can have all that stuff, have it be secure and encrypted on my local devices, secured by my iCloud passcode or whatever. And then also not have to pay a monthly fee to some other company. It's just included in the Apple, subscriptions that I already have.
So it's kind of taken the approach that like a password manager would, where it's not even sending anything that they know how to decrypt.
Exactly. Yeah. And so if I want to look at it, I can pull that up from my phone. I can pull that up from your Apple TV. So you can get doorbells that are HomeKit Secure Video compatible and like when someone's at the door, it will show a little preview of the video on the Apple TV, like while you're watching TV, if you wanted to, which is kind of neat. So all of those things, I just want to, like, I'm concerned. There's a lot of kind of privacy concerning things about Ring, and kind of the ways that they handle your data. And I really don't like that. So something like HomeKit Secure Video is actually something that I am very interested in.
So Chris, you were talking about kind of how privacy is a concern of yours, and maybe kind of tying back to episode 1 where we talked about home labs and self-hosting things. There is a free and open source sort of, I don't know what you would call this, home automation management platform called Home Assistant that's fairly popular among the home server self-hosting community. And it's kind of a mix between like a HomeKit and Google Assistant and If This Then That. So it actually has all of these integrations already kind of implemented. So you could connect to your Wemos and your Hues and all these other things, Ring devices. But instead of controlling them through something that a company owns and maybe controls on their side, you could have it all hosted on a server that you maintain. And I think they actually sell an appliance too, like a device, if you just wanted to go that route. But I would think that for something like that, you could conceivably go a route where your Ring video is captured and just stored locally on like a NAS or something. So like you're getting really into the self-hosting side of this and really maintaining your own infrastructure, but it is your own infrastructure. So you would really have control over it.
Yeah, I've read a lot about Home Assistant. One of the communities that I frequent has a lot of people that are very excited about Home Assistant. And it looks really interesting. And it actually can serve as a bridge into HomeKit. So like if you have something that is not HomeKit supported, but you can figure out how to talk to it using Home Assistant, you can basically use Home Assistant as a bridge. There's also a thing called HomeBridge that you can run on a Raspberry Pi, which allows you to kind of do the same thing. But Home Assistant actually has both directions. It has like a HomeKit provider and like a HomeKit listener, I think. So like you can provide things, serve things into HomeKit, or you can basically receive commands from HomeKit, I think. And I don't know exactly how that all works out, but it's cool that it can talk through that. I actually thought about setting one of those up, but for me, everything I need is kind of covered right now in HomeKit, and it's just more trouble than it's worth, I would say, to kind of self-maintain that.
Yeah, that's kind of the recurring theme for any self-hosted option. A lot of the time, it's just so easy to do it without self-hosting. But it does sound like, and I haven't looked into it perhaps as much as you have, but it does sound like a lot of the scheduling, the logic, the storage, the integrations that you're going for would all be handled pretty nicely by this one platform, which I think is pretty cool that those options exist.
Yeah, I would actually say that if HomeKit were to go away, I think that's where I would start. I would go to Home Assistant and say that's what I would rather work with instead of trying to go over to the Google or the Amazon ecosystems, mostly from the privacy standpoint. I do worry a little bit about the cameras because something like a Ring camera isn't going to just let you have their camera feed, right? It's all kind of IP cameras with proprietary software that's really designed to upload to their cloud and all of that. So that's why HomeKit Secure Video is so nice, because it gives you kind of a backdoor out of some of that. But if there's something that has that and also is Home Assistant compatible, then even better.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a challenge that Home Assistant has to frequently tackle and cope with, is like these devices were not necessarily designed to be hackable per se. But Jason, I know this is what you were worried about. They do indeed have a version of Home Assistant that could run on a Raspberry Pi. So you could just plug that in. It's easy.
Yeah, I got to be totally honest with you. You guys started talking about all this, and I just totally shut down. Because one, I'm never going to host a home server. And two, the last thing I want is to add more gadgets and apps. And what did we call it in that episode?
Mission critical hobbies.
Mission critical hobbies. The last thing I want is a mission critical hobby that is both required for my internet, the way my computer runs, and the way my entire house runs.
Well, I mean, what's the worst that could happen? You run a command and suddenly your video feed of your front door is just kind of broadcast to the dark web. It's fine.
Forget the dark web. It's going to just get broadcast to Twitch.
That would actually be really impressive. Like if you accidentally managed to get that to happen.
So Jason, you've been asking us a lot of questions about our setup, and as the person that doesn't have any stuff, have we helped or hurt the case for smart home devices?
I'm almost entirely convinced that no matter what I do, I'm going to want to get HomeKit. I think the selling points on that have been enough. The other thing that I'm kind of learning is that I'm going to want to center around some uniformity of company. I'm not quite sure what that is, right? You guys talked about Wemo and Belkin. Chris, I think you mentioned Lutron with the switches. You know, I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm going to have to center around something. I did come up with some good ideas during this show. Unfortunately, most of the things that I control on a daily basis are wall switched. So the fan over my head, the lights in my kitchen, and many of them are on double switch circuits. I don't know if that's the right term, but they have two switches.
Three-way switch.
Three-way switches. Thank you. So that adds to the complexity of what I can buy. Many of them are on two switch panels. So that adds to the complexity a little bit. But I've come up with some pretty good ideas that actually may solve some, I don't want to call them problems because they're very first world problems, but you know, some things I would probably enjoy, like being able to turn my fan on right now. I wouldn't because we're recording, but being able to turn my fan on, my overhead fan on from my desk. I mean, it's not a very far walk, but to be able to do it from my phone or from an RFID or from a switch on my desktop or whatever, right? Or heck, I could put it on my MIDI controller in front of me.
Oh, yeah.
You know, is something like that would be really cool. And I think that would be something I actually use. But I'm not super convinced that, one, I need any of this in my life. And two, I'm still a little hesitant on like what I'm going to actually purchase, because here's the other side of this, right? Like for me to be able to turn on my fan overhead right now, I'm going to need to buy a switch. That switch is going to be at least $20, at least.
Sure.
Probably much more.
Probably like 50.
And I'm not sure that's worth it.
If you were in somewhere where you were permanently living, or at least semi-permanently living, I think it pays for itself within a couple of years. Like you forget the money that you spent on the Switch part, and you're just like, wow, it's really nice to have this, right? I mean, think of it this way. Would you pay, you know, I don't know, $2 a month for 2 years to have that capability?
Probably not.
Really?
I'd rather just walk over and turn on the fan.
Yeah, well, okay.
We're talking about like 15 feet of steps here. Now, what I could say is if for a garage door opener, because that adds like peace of mind, right? Is my garage door closed? Mm-hmm. I think that adds, you know, some value that is worth a bit of money. You know, some light switches downstairs, you know, over a period of years, maybe turning them off is going to save some money. Being able to turn off my downstairs lights from my desk, right? Because I have kind of an overhang and I can see downstairs and I know they're on right now and I'd love to turn them off, but I'm not going to walk all the way downstairs. That might be worth it because it's a little further. There's a small security element to it with the house on being able to turn on and off your lights. There's a coolness factor of having the lights automatically turn on when it's dark or when you get home. Maybe I could spend the money there. But again, like, I feel like going halvesies on, I don't know. I like this to me feels like something that is going to be really difficult for me, Jason, not as for a normal person, but for me to go like halfway into, like to do piecewise. I'm either going to want to do it or I'm not. And when I'm going to want to do it, I'm going to have to spend like at least $300 to get started with, you know, if any bridges are required, with switches, with RFID tags around the house with a garage door opener. Like, it's going to be a week-long project, and I'm not there yet.
I would recommend to start with smart plugs because they're very easy and obviously require no wiring.
I don't plug anything in. There's literally nothing plugged into my house. There's nothing. There is one lamp in my bedroom and my computer and some TVs. That's it.
Okay.
And like all of my Echo devices. But that's like, those are the only things that are plugged in the house.
We started with Christmas trees. That was the first thing. And that was, we did that for probably 2 years before we got anything else.
I don't even do a Christmas tree. No one comes over here.
Okay, well, that's episode 4 is why don't you put up a Christmas tree?
I mean, I agree with you. I would love to get some switches. I think they're really low barrier to entry kind of starts. But I thought about it on like, what things would I put on a smart switch? Nothing. There's nothing in my house that goes on a smart switch, that goes even on a plug.
You can also, one thing I've done is switched in a couple of cases to using a like standing floor lamp instead of like an overhead light so that I can put it on a plug smart switch. I did that in our bedroom, I believe.
I don't know. I don't know that my life in my situation at home is really begging for any of this automation yet. I want to. It seems cool to me. It's just one of those techs that I want to get involved in, but I just don't see a need here for me. Right? And it's never a need. I don't see a strong enough want here.
I think the way you, at one point in this segment, you mentioned that this doesn't seem like the kind of thing that you personally would not be able to do like bit by bit. It's the kind of thing you would just have to say, okay, I'm doing it. I'm going to get all of the things that I need and going to just complete my home automation journey. And I feel like for most people, a lot of these devices, a lot of these, different functions, they're very much designed to be the kind of things you build up over time. Not just because they tend to be a little expensive, but because it's like, okay, think about where, a little bit more convenience would be nice. Okay, I have this light that is a little annoying. For me, it was my lamps. I just don't like going around. I like light, but I don't like having to go around and turn on switches at my lamps. So I was like, okay, well, let's see if I could make it so that a computer could do it for me. And that wound up being enough. But, I'm sure eventually some other source of friction will come along and I'll be like, okay, well, let's see if I can improve that. There's just kind of incremental improvements all along.
It sounds like your downstairs lights would be a really good starting point.
Yeah, my kitchen lights would be a good starting point. It's a 3-way switch, both switches are on a 2-switch panel though. So
that is how my kitchen lights are. Both switches are on a 2-switch panel and it's a 3-way switch. And they actually make a special switch. So Leviton, the people that the manufacturer that I got my dimmer for my kitchen from, makes a pack, or not really a pack, but a thing you can buy where you basically have one primary and then you get a cheaper device that's essentially a remote for the primary that you stick in the second switch of the 3-way, the other switch. And then they talk to each other. You have to have a common wire. There's a little bit of, requirements on the wiring side, but if your house is relatively recent, it's probably fine. But those have worked out great, and you can use either one of them. They both have full functionality. It's just one of them is the one that's actually connected to the Wi-Fi, and the other one uses this wire in the wall to talk to the first one.
Yeah, that's probably where I would start. How did you deal with the 2-switch panel?
You just if you have paddle switches already, which is what I have.
Which I don't. Yeah, and so I'd have to replace the second switch with a paddle switch, which I could do.
You can get hybrid switch plates, I believe, also. You can get a switch plate that has a paddle and a switch.
Well, that's just ugly.
Well, fine. I mean, you asked for solutions.
I'm not doing that. That's ugly. Although it would make sense for a dimmer switch.
Yeah, mine is a digital dimmer, which is really cool because it's very neat. I also would not get hung up on the everything has to be from the same company because that's really the problem that HomeKit is solving for you.
Yeah, if I went HomeKit, I don't know that it would matter as much. Yeah. I don't know. TBD. I hope this episode of SuperQuit has helped you more than it has helped me. I am still stuck in the purgatory of questions about home automation. We will see. We will see. But we'd love to hear from you. You know, get in touch with us on things that we may have missed, or things that may convince me, or things that I should start with. We'd love to hear from you, and you can reach out to any of us personally because you probably know us.
If you'd like to check up on any of our older episodes, you can visit our website at superquit.libsyn.com. That's libsyn.com. There you can also find our show notes. We'll maybe have a few links to some things that we talked about here. I don't know if we'll get through everything, but we might surprise you.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll see you next time.
What if we did, I'm Chris, I'm Mario, I'm Jason, and this is SuperQuit.
Right, it needs like yeah.
The Mario or the Pokemon battle music.
Oh, that would work too. I was thinking the drum solo from the Final Countdown. But yeah, something like that.